Welcome to Talk South Asian to Me Season 2. My name is Mashal.
And my name is Anusha. Tune in every Thursday at 5 p.m. Central and hear us react to each other's stories about mental health and growing up in different South Asian households.
And remember, this podcast is not therapy. Engage with what feels entertaining and resonates with you, and leave what doesn't. Okay, you ready for our topic reveal for today?
I think we need to have a little jingle for ready for a topic reveal. Da-da-da-da.
Right, I love it. Like a Jeopardy jingle, or just kind of like the
We need to look into this.
right? We're on letter
ready.
M. We're on letter M. And our topic for today is money. Money. I know we kind of brought this up in season 1. I feel like we've talked about this topic before, maybe sprinkled into other episodes of how this could be its own episode. And now it is its own episode.
Maybe I should go listen.
Yeah, maybe.
But here we are.
Okay, so there's just a lot out there when it comes to relationships, psychology, and finances, like just the relationship between family and money, and attitudes toward money and behaviors towards money. There's just a lot out there. So I'm kind of going to just summarize a little bit of some of the findings I have, but there is just so much more research, and a lot of psychologists are sharing a lot of expertise behind this topic. But I kind of wanted to just focus on the basics and then kind of get into our South Asian culture and how it relates to money as well, the norms in our culture. Okay? So the first article I wanted to talk about is called The Psychological Impact of Money on Relationships. So this is, again, general info about money. And this article is written by James R. Langabeer and published on December 7, 2022. So I'm going to say some quotes that stood out to me from this article. So money is a source of pride or comfort for some, and guilt, stress, or shame for others. And since 70% of the US are currently married or partnered, conflict in relationships seems inevitable, since each of us brings into a family or romantic relationship different perspectives and values. Financial conflicts are inevitable. In a recent APA survey, 55% of Americans reported that they agree or strongly agree that money is a major source of conflict in their household. That's a lot. 55%. The same report suggests that stress over finances is at its highest level in nearly a decade. And post-COVID, we are seeing financial insecurity reach new highs as layoffs from big companies such as Amazon and other big companies shake stock markets. So then this author goes into kind of explaining the reasoning behind these conflicts and the psychological impact. So there are several theories that explain the psychological impact of money. There's a theory called the social or economic exchange theory that suggests that people use money as a form of reward or punishment in relationships. And this can create power imbalances or struggles and feelings of insecurity or inferiority. Right? And I feel like that's something that I've seen a lot too, is just money can become a power struggle sometimes in relationships. Another theory, the evolutionary psychology perspective, suggests that money is associated with survival and security, which can lead to feelings of anxiety and stress when money is scarce. Learning theory also implies that we adopt our attitudes and beliefs from our parents or social environments. Others have suggested our attitudes toward money are primarily derived from scripts or dialogues adopted from our family upbringing. So I'm going to use that terminology a little bit moving forward too. I'll define it too in a little bit. When it says scripts or dialogues adopted from our family upbringing, I think that's something that really resonated with me too when I was researching, is that a lot of these beliefs and attitudes can come from how they were viewed in your household and where you were raised. So these are money scripts, how you viewed money. That's kind of innate thing or something that you learned growing up. It became innate. And so for some people, they had to unlearn.
That's a good callback to our childhood loop episode.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's another article this is from Psychology Today, How your parents' belief about money affect you. So we're going to go into that now. And this article is written by Joyce Martyr, written and published on August 28, 2021. So the author, Joy Martyr, goes into first a client example, which I thought was really interesting to start with. And so I'm going to kind of state that example in the beginning. So, quote, my mother's relationship with money is making me buy ugly shoes. That's like the first line of the article, which was catching. And that's like the client quote. And so the author says, how? I asked curiously with a smile. And the client's name is Jasmine. So Jasmine replied, Mom's always been so cheap. She drilled into me that spending more than you need on items was wasteful and bad. So I have a closet filled with inexpensive, ugly shoes, none of which I like or feel good about myself when wearing. I experience guilt and shame for spending lots of money, filling my closet with items I don't like. And then the author continues to say that Jasmine realized she had internalized an assumed message that somehow she wasn't deserving of nice things, even though she worked hard and was financially responsible. She changed her behaviors to buying far fewer but nicer shoes that she felt fabulous wearing. The end result was improved self-esteem, a less cluttered closet that helped unclutter her mind, and improve financial wellness. Okay, so then, yeah, right? Isn't it? So I was like, I need to include this because it's a very good example of how your caregivers or your upbringing, the people who raised you, can affect your attitude and beliefs towards money.
I see it all the time. Unlearning our money
Right.
beliefs.
Yes. So the term that I was saying before, right, money scripts, this author further defines it. So the term money scripts, or the phrase money scripts, was developed by financial psychologists. And this is a quote: their money scripts are underlying assumptions or beliefs about money that are typically only partially true, and they're often developed in childhood and unconsciously followed throughout adulthood. Money scripts are core beliefs derived from financial flashpoints, early life events, or series of events associated with money. These events are powerful, they leave an imprint that lasts into adulthood. Those early childhood beliefs often drive our adult financial behaviors. Often they are passed down from generation to generation, so it's intergenerational, within families and cultures, and shape their financial realities.
That makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. So this author further shares that research kind of in general has identified 4 money script patterns in general, 4 categories. So we're going to learn about them and define them. Have you heard about these before?
No.
Oh, okay. I know, I see your face. You're like, ooh, I'm excited. I want to hear this. And it's really cool. I'm going to put like examples. I really like the examples that the author puts. I'm going to say those too in conjunction with the definition of the category. So the first pattern, the first category of a money script is money worship. Money worshippers believe money buys happiness and love to flaunt their money. They obsess over money and feel like they'll never have enough. Okay? That's money worship. Money status are people who have the money script as money status. They're people who value money as status. It defines their self-worth by they define their self-worth by their net worth. They want the best quality products and may overspend to look like they have more money than they do. Mm-hmm. The third pattern is money avoidance. People who avoid money typically feel fear, disgust, or anxiety about money. They believe money is the root of all evil. They may view wealthy people as greedy and believe it's better to have less money. Okay, and then the last one is money vigilance. People who are money vigilant focus are more frugal. They focus on saving their money and believe you need to work hard to earn money. So again, like anything that we've talked about that has categories, right? This is a spectrum. It's not like fixed. But there was research that was put behind these, or I looked into these patterns, and researchers found that money vigilance, which is the one where people are frugal, but they also believe that you need to work hard to earn money. Those types of people, they had behaviors that were not linked to problematic financial behaviors. But the other 3 were linked to potentially destructive financial behaviors. So like the destructive behaviors include they're associated with lower net worth, a lower income, and higher amounts of revolving credit. So in contrast, money vigilant people are more likely to pay attention to their financial well-being and be more aware.
Yeah. As you were going through them, the first 3 did seem a bit like extreme spectrums on the edge of them.
And then of course, because it's a psychology article, they always like end some tips and things like that. So I just wanted to include that since we're talking about this article. The author says, if your money belief system is causing you stress, spend some time identifying your own pattern and changing what is fueling the self-defeating pattern. To get to the heart of your money script, write down a situation or behavior you engage in around money, and then ask yourself, what is the physical sensation that you're feeling because of the behavior or situation that's related to money? So, an example is I have muscle tension, fear, or anger when my spouse brings up the topic. Another question you can ask yourself is, what is your current money script? I work hard. Example is I work hard, so I deserve to have what I want. If I set up a budget, I will live in deprivation. What it's just kind of understanding where your money script falls in that spectrum. Another question you can ask yourself is, what could be an alternative script and or adaptive behavior you could use? So for example, if I follow a saving and spending plan, I can retire comfortably and not worry about debt. I will buy a self-help book on spending plans and get started with a financial planner next month. Again, it's like that money vigilant behavior, right? Like kind of reframing how you think about money after you're aware of your original patterns, thinking patterns about money. I thought this was interesting, so I included this too from the article. There was a research study of college students that found evidence that the financial decisions of parents play a large role in their children's financial behaviors during college, which makes sense, right? It's hard to make positive changes unless we deal with emotional problems and behaviors linked with our outdated money scripts. So the results of this study kind of showed that it's important to incorporate financial education in college, which is something that if you don't actively seek out those classes, like you're not really getting that education naturally, automatically.
Or at some point entering into adulthood,
Right.
actually having a class, and it could just be a life skills class. Learn how to balance a checkbook, learn how to save money, learn how to appropriately spend and save and invest, learn how to maybe cook, learn some relationship skills.
Yeah. And this should be taught in high school, I feel like, not just college.
Absolutely. Life skills needs to be an actual class taught sometime, somewhere. College, high school, even better.
Exactly. And then this is just a little cliche quote from the article, but I thought it was like appropriate to kind of share this. And I loved it so much because, I'm a cheesy cliche person too. So this author ends the article with saying, we are in the driver's seat and can choose whichever shoes we'd like as we put the pedal to the metal on the road to financial peace and prosperity. You are worth the work of exploring your money scripts and rewriting your narrative to cultivate mental wealth as well as emotional and financial health. Right? I love it. So good. Before I keep going, do you have any questions or thoughts about money scripts that we talked about?
Questions yet.
Okay.
It was really cool I never knew the different kind of categories that went into it. But in my experience, definitely especially my work with South Asians, I see a lot of South Asians have a very complicated, I'll say, relationship with money. And usually it falls on one side. Either they're really, really anxious and they never feel like they have enough and they're constantly striving for something, or they feel, it's like what you said at the very beginning, they don't feel like they deserve to spend money in frivolous ways, quote unquote frivolous ways.
Yeah.
Even if it's something like small and they know logically that's a small thing, I can definitely swing it, I can afford that. They feel
Exactly.
guilty spending that money.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then there was this other article, also from Psychology Today, that kind of brings a different perspective, but also helps us better understand how people view money and where those views and attitudes and beliefs can come from. So this article is called What Your Relationship with Money Reveals About You, published in July 13, 2019. And this author, this article kind of goes into like different categories of mindsets that people have towards their money. So the first mindset is scarcity mindset. This person who with a scarcity, I don't even know if I'm saying that word right. Is that saying it right?
Scarcity. I've heard it
Yeah,
both ways.
yeah. Scarcity mindset. If someone has this mindset, they see money and other resources as zero-sum games. Like, for example, there's some more for others, meaning less for you, and vice versa. So a person might feel bad with this mindset. This person might feel bad whether the money is coming in or going out.
Sure.
Overall, paying money to others feels bad because this person sees it as less money for them, and then receiving money can lead to guilt about taking money from others. So it's just like a zero sum, like you're just feeling bad and guilt both ways.
Mm.
Thinking about like the half glass empty mindset, the scarcity mindset. And then the second one I wanted to talk about was the abundance mentality. So like the person who has the abundance mentality kind of embraces that cycle of giving and receiving. So this person's mindset is that if they spend $100, it goes into somebody else's hand who will spend that $100 somewhere else. And in the end, that $100 might come back to them.
Mm.
It's like that acceptance of like that cycle. So again, like the half glass full mindset in a way. Other ways that can affect a person's attitude or mindset towards money is another term I like that this author used was money wounds, quote unquote. These are that we carry from earlier in life. So a quote from this article is that most of us are hurt around money when we were children. Maybe we were denied taking ballet or soccer lessons because our parents couldn't afford it. It was something that they couldn't help, but we still felt hurt that we were denied certain things. Another example is that your parents couldn't afford the fashions that the other kids were wearing, so you developed a feeling of inadequacy. You might also have internalized the stress your parents felt about money, or maybe you blamed yourself for their stress.
Sure.
And then another aspect of our lives can also shape and influence our attitudes and views towards money is our aspirations. So our early experiences with money can also affect what we believe we're capable of. For example, if we dreamed of getting a nice toy but couldn't afford it, we might come to believe that the things we really want in life will always be out of reach. And since we were denied our dream, we feel like our dreams are not something we can fulfill. As a result, we give up on the dreams we used to have, even if we're perfectly capable of reaching them. So it can even affect our aspirations in general. I know. I was like, wow, this is like very insightful for something that, thinking about the word finance and money very surface level, we can look at it very surface level, but it does go way deeper than we anticipate. There's just so much psychology linked to it, I would say.
Yeah. That's fascinating. It really is.
For sure. So now we're going to get into the South Asian culture. Are you ready?
I'm so ready.
I have so much to say about this, and I was like, I cannot squeeze this in. I feel like whatever I'm about to say can become its own subtopic in a different episode if you want. Like, that's how much stuff there is. And I was like, wow, it makes sense too. Like, if you start to think on the top of your head, there's just so much that is out there when it comes to like norms and the culture or surrounding money.
Maybe we'll do a part 2. We'll see.
So this article is called, it's literally called, As a Money Coach from a South Asian Family, I've seen how cultural narratives keep young women from building wealth. So we're going to talk about gender norms first. Oh, did you?
Easy off.
Parveen Munder.
Yeah, why did I read? Must have been for something specific, but I remember reading that.
Okay, that's good. Love it. And this was published in December 2022. So I'm going to go into like some quotes that I extracted from this article. So the Praveen goes, our culture has countless strict gender roles, one of which is that men manage money and women don't. And this is a quote actually that the author quoted from Ashka, or by Ashka Pribrother. I don't know if I'm saying that right. The founder of Boss Betis. Have you heard of that, Boss Betis?
Yeah.
Okay. And then Ashka continues to say in this email that was sent to the author of this article saying, so while men get to discuss money openly and proudly, women, if they ever discuss it, do so in a hushed, quiet voices. Mm-hmm. So another subheading that stood out to me in this article was how being a good daughter impacts our finances.
Oh, this is the part.
Yeah.
I think
So,
I wrote about this for a blog.
oh, okay.
I love this
Okay,
part.
I need to read this blog. Okay. So this author says, as daughters, we were constantly bombarded with messages of being good. I'm doing quotes, air quotes, good and honorable growing up. To be good, however, meant being of service to others, no matter the cost or inconvenience to us. Ding, 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 people pleasing, right? And this can show up in financial enabling, which is its own like term, a money disorder where we overcompensate and provide for others financially, even if it harms our ability to save or attain our financial goals, which I thought was cool. Like there's a term for it. The author goes, we use money as a way to people please. So whenever our parents ask us for money or we're told to send money to a random relative back in India or back home, we will comply, even if it hurts us financially. Mm-hmm. But then I love that this author went into like how to be good, but also build financial independence. Were you going
Before
to say
you go into
something?
that,
Yeah.
I have a quick example. Yeah. So I think another example that comes to mind is when you, this is a common example that always tends to come up in therapy work, is when South Asians feel the innate, like internal pressure, no external pressure, just an
Mm-hmm.
internal pressure to kind of go above and beyond when they're hosting or they're
Yeah.
out having like meals with even friends
Yeah.
or family, and they feel
Yeah.
the need to like, oh, this person is visiting, I need to pay. Oh, this
Mm-hmm.
person is visiting, I need to get all the snacks in the house and
Right.
their favorite things,
Yeah.
even if it's something that is kind of a stretch maybe financially.
You're right. It's so much that goes into this.
Yeah, I feel like that's one that tends to show up maybe, possibly, I don't know, a little bit more common than hopefully the pressure of, hey, send money back to these
Yeah.
people. Hopefully.
Yeah. Like the people pleasing behavior kind of drives
Absolutely.
the
Yeah.
financial enabling,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. Whether it's internal people pleasing
Or
or it's like
external.
an external validation of, yeah, this is
Yeah.
good.
Or
I
expectation.
like this. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, oh,
Yeah.
like they're coming over, you need to make sure to buy them this gift or make sure like,
Yeah.
being directed in that way.
Yeah. And
Um,
this is by no means to say that that's not a good, quote unquote, good thing or a
yeah,
loving thing, or that you can't do it, that it's bad if you do this, but rather if you can afford it and it doesn't create resentment for you, awesome. If it
hmm,
creates resentment for you or you feel like you cannot afford it, you don't need to do that. That's a
exactly,
people pleasing thing that absolutely can be worked on.
exactly. And this is the goal, right? To like reflect on
Yeah.
it. And it's
Yeah.
so interesting how so much ties back to the people pleasing tendencies that are cultivated in our culture.
Yeah.
Wow. Like I feel like every single thing we've talked about, it's some kind of, even if it's a tiny
People,
link, it's
people,
there.
every single thing.
You need to get that out of the door, no more. That's the solution to a lot
Mm,
of these challenges.
yeah. It's the root
Easier
cause.
said than
Well,
done, though.
not root cause, but it's a
Mm-hmm.
root contributor to all of
Mm-hmm.
this. Yeah, for
Mm-hmm.
sure. Mm.
So the end of this article, kind of the author writes about how females can be good, but also build financial independence, which I really like that there was like a way to sharing examples of how we can reframe this mindset and these expectations. So the author goes, we need to put our own financial oxygen mask first. I recommend starting a specific savings goal in an account titled Parent Fund, where you can stash away money for your family in the event that they need it. This is a way to set a financial boundary so that you don't feel resentful or sabotaged if they require funds from you, which I thought was a good tip. Yeah. It's
That
not
way you
real.
still feel like you're doing it. You're doing the thing that you want to
Mm-hmm.
do, if that's, a desire,
Mm-hmm.
a drive
Mm-hmm.
for you, but you also get to take care of you and
Yeah,
to be responsible with that so you don't feel
exactly.
resentment. That's a
Exactly.
good tip.
Okay, so this other article called For South Asians, Money Talk with Family Can Be Difficult, but It's Crucial. And this is actually really recent, published in April of this year, April 8, 2024, and written by Anmol Irfan. So again, the starting line was captivating, so I wanted to share it. Quotation, a woman should never earn more than her husband. End quotation. How many times have we heard that? You know? Have you heard that before? I don't know if that's more like a Pakistani like value or like expectation or culture. Like I feel like I've heard that.
I haven't heard it verbalized
Okay.
often. However, I think that in the way that people talk about, like, oh, who are you dating, and like, oh, this
Mm-hmm.
person's the right match for you, it
Mm-hmm.
kind of comes up that they are well off or better off,
Mm-hmm.
perhaps,
Mm.
right? But I don't think it's ever been specifically stated with
Okay.
those words.
I have definitely
But
heard
subliminal
this.
messaging is there.
Yeah. And it's definitely actively said out loud too. I've heard this.
Ah.
um so the author has some really great quotes, so I'm going to share that. So author says, so despite the fact that many women around me started small businesses of their own, from baking to designing jewelry to gift wrapping, all of them seemed to humble themselves when talking about their work. They distanced themselves from the idea that they were doing it for the money and instead called their work a hobby. So minimizing like the credit that they would give themselves. Like that's common.
Let me just say, it is not easy work. If you are going
Exactly.
through the
It's not
hard
a
work,
hobby.
yeah, if you're going through that hard work, you deserve to own that shit. Like,
Yes.
it's hard work. Damn.
Exactly. Exactly. Um And then another kind of paragraph from this article is that when children do try to do things on their own, parents can be left feeling betrayed. It means that many young men in their 20s and 30s find themselves frustrated and stuck between they are unable to make the financial decisions that they want to make or venture into new business ideas. The only time we talk about money is when there's distress. So when parents talk about it, it often seems like they want to control, versus when kids talk about it, it seems that they can't manage it or they need help. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then this author continues and says, I know women who don't know what they do if they found themselves alone or without their partner's support. And for women for whom financial dependence means that they can't leave abusive situations, the entire cultural structure can create a threat to their mental and physical health. In the worst case scenarios, women endure physical and emotional abuse because they have no one else who can support them or their children. So, right, it can be really serious too, like these gender norms and how it cultivates gender or financial dependence. So, the author suggests that talking about finances and financial literacy starting at a young age is really important, right? And I agree. Like, I think that's going to help normalize these conversations. But, I think it's pretty common, and I'll go into this in my story too. Like, it's not really talked about in our culture. It's kind of just managed by the head of the household, which is typically the male in the household, right? Um, and then I was looking up a little bit more of just like some articles, and I just recently just found one too. Like another article is called "How a Culture of Guilt Around Spending Fractures Young Indians' Relationship with Money." So I'll just say some key points from this article of how like some people share that they have so much guilt that after purchasing something they immediately regret it. Mm-hmm. Um, a counseling psychologist lists 3 factors that largely shape how we perceive money and finances: psychological, like personal beliefs, social, and cultural, and all of them play a role, right? Um, and then this other article, so this article kind of goes into guilt, which I think was really interesting, and I would agree as well. There's just so much guilt too when it comes around that. But this other article I found on LinkedIn actually, and it's called Unique Indian Money Habits. And it was published in 2023. And there was just this author, this article kind of goes into like listing different habits that I don't think this is like completely based on research. It just say like it's the Ernest and Young research, and that their Indians are well known for their ingenuity and financial discipline. And so that's kind of based on like that research and how there's different habits. So the first habit is like thriving on ingenuity, which is that Indians have a remarkable ability to create economically competitive alternatives to Western products, right? And that helps them save money. And then habit 2 is saving first, spending later, right? That idea that hey, we're going to save first and then we're going to buy it again can sometimes instill stress in that mindset. And then how this is a collective culture. So a third habit could be family-centric financial decisions, that family relationships and interdependence are highly valued. And so this is mirrored in financial decisions too, like multiple generations living under one roof and accommodating and including everyone to help make these major financial choices and decisions that can cause more stress when there's too many cooks in the kitchen in a way, right? Like you're not able to fully make a financial decision independently when you're in these multi-generational households. And then another habit is maximizing utility and minimizing waste, which is something that I feel like is just not just Indian. I think it's like in the Pakistani culture as well, where it's the using products until they are no longer functioning or at sustainability or cost savings. And I've seen that with like my toothpaste at home, or like, using your toothbrush to like squeeze the toothpaste all the way to the top.
Face wash. I was like,
I'm the same. I'm the same. I put my shampoo bottles upside down so they like run to the bottom. It's just things like that. And these habits, like the author says, these habits aren't good or bad. They're just like characteristics of money habits that people in South Asian countries have. And then lastly, I wanted to talk about TikTok because I went to social media for some scenarios and examples as well. And so there's this account actually. This person's account is called Perveen Money Coach. And have you seen that? Have you seen this
I think
videos?
She's the one that
who wrote the article. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I agree. I wasn't 100% sure because the last name wasn't on the TikTok, but
I think it is. I remember reading that and going to her social media.
Okay, maybe I missed it. But those videos are really good, and I found some examples. So one of the videos that Praveen speaks on is that, and Praveen says that family members overextend themselves to help other family members, and they put themselves in worse financial situations sometimes. And at times when they pay and help other family members, they're manipulated, and they're sometimes not even repaid, or they're not expected to be repaid. Mm-hmm. And then there's just so much, like another terminology that was going around in TikTok was South Asian money trauma. And another behavior that's related to that is like hoarding, which again, I think could be its own episode. But hoarding is, I think, a behavior that derives from South Asian money trauma. Like, you're in that saving mindset. You think like you bought this thing. Yeah, scarcity mindset. Like you bought this thing, so I'm going to keep it because I'll use it later. So I know that was a lot, but that was my research and some background on this topic.
I learned things. I love it when I learn these things on the podcast.
I love it. I learned a lot too. I had no idea like these money thinking patterns and behaviors exist. These categories exist. A spectrum exists. And I think the gender norms and things like that are always in the back of the head, right? Because there's just so much when it comes to gender norms and gender expectations. But when you put into perspective with these different topics like money, it brings like a new light to it in a different way.
Yeah.
It helps you become a little bit more aware of it.
Absolutely. Gives you an opportunity.
Yeah.
Maybe an opportunity to change. Yes. If there's anything you want to change.
Exactly. Okay, you ready for my story / reflection?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm ready.
So I was raised in a household in which I was very privileged. And I know I've shared this in the past too. Both my parents worked full-time jobs growing up. My parents ensured that me and my sister did not have to worry about money. Their mentality, which I think is a shared immigrant mentality with a lot of parents, is that education comes first and that I can work after. Um, so their mentality, like I remember like in high school, like all my friends, non-South Asian friends would be working and I'll be like, oh, like I should get a job too to learn. And they were like, no, you can work after you finish school. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Um, even like elementary, middle school, like my non-South Asian friends would get allowances and I would like compare and be like, why am I not getting away? And again, I think that was another way to learn about money management. And again, it was the same answer, like, oh, you don't need to worry about money. Don't worry about it. We got it. You can worry about it after you grow up and like after you get a job. Um, and so I think all these behaviors and collective and not, talking about finances at home, financial situations were not really transparent in my household. Like I didn't really know if there were if was anything going on in the background. So I think that kind of cultivated my relationship with money like as avoidant. Um, like in my head, if I'm being frugal, paying my bills on time, then I'm good. But really, I can be more strategic with my money, managing my savings better, investing, right? There's so much more potential that I can achieve with my money. But I feel like I just didn't really actively think about it just because that was how I was raised. Um, so throughout college, even, right, I would use my parents' credit card, which my non-South Asian friends thought was really different from what they were observed and experienced. Like my mom's non-South Asian friends from work would be like, oh yeah, like once my daughter and son graduate high school, like they're out of the house, like we're not providing them any money. Like if they need support, we will, but like overall, like they're on their own. We'll help with college tuition, but like that's it.
Mm.
Um, and it was very different, right? The idea of moving out after you're 18 and being on your own isn't really a thing. I feel like, at least in my culture, in our collective culture, like my parents wanted me to stay with them until I was married. That was like the expectation.
Mm.
But, it wasn't until after undergrad I chose to become independent. Um, even though I wasn't fully independent, like my parents were still helping me with my student loans, but I got my own credit card. I was living in my own apartment with a roommate, but paying my own bills, like, all the utility bills, paying like my expenses, like grocery shopping. Like I started doing my own thing. Um,
In undergrad?
After undergrad, like when I got my first job as a teacher. Yeah. Um, and at one point, like I thought I was a little nervous, like how am I going to manage that? But like thankfully, I was able to kind of just learn the ins and outs of like paying bills, how credit cards work. But again, I did the very like minimum knowledge. Like I just gained the minimum knowledge I needed to. Like I am still working on figuring out how to like make potential with the money I have, right? How to be strategic with it, how to financially plan. Um, and so I also learned later in life, that being in this collective culture, like my parents supported other family members financially without asking for anything in return, which is very humble of them. But I always wonder, what if they spent a little on themselves and what would it be like? A little bit more, because that's what I noticed too growing up is that, I think their money script was kind of the scarcity mindset, like they would be stuck in the saving mode. They've always modeled the behavior of sacrificing comfort to save money, which I agree to a certain extent. Like maybe it makes sense to sometimes sacrifice your comfort, but not all the time, right? Like your comfort is important. It's important to treat yourself. I have never observed my parents spend money on buying each other or themselves gifts or nice things without reason. Like, like their pants or like their purse or their wallet has to be like ripped up and a hole in them to get a new one. You know what I mean? Like it's just, they're, that's just not something that they were used to, and I don't think they observe growing up themselves either.
Mm.
Um, their money spending is very people pleasing driven. I would say it's easier for them to spend money for others than themselves. So like we talked about, like when we do like parties and gatherings, like birthday parties and things like that growing up, I would see them like be okay with like spending money for me, my sister, like gifts for us, and like get a nice cake for our birthday or like get nice decorations. But when it came to themselves, that was not the same. Mm-hmm. And I think that could, like, I was reflecting on that too. Like, I think you could go back to the immigration trauma, right? Starting from my parents starting from ground zero in a new country, having to save to build a new life in the West, right? That mindset of like you have to save like to build a better life, like they're just kind of stuck in that mindset.
So interesting.
Um, mhm. And even now, like I'm still working on figuring out my financial plans and like future planning, financial planning. But even now, when I try to buy something nice for myself or like a better quality product that will last longer and that I actually love, right? I feel guilt. And that sometimes surfaces till this day, right? Finances intimidate me. Like I need to make sure I buy things on sale, right? I have to like tell the price of what I bought the new thing for. Just a
Mm-hmm.
lot of like sensitivity and guilt surrounding that, just because of how these attitudes and beliefs were modeled for me growing up. Um, and then recently being newly married, right? My husband and I also are having ongoing conversations around finances and what our financial shared goals are. And that's really helping like make it a little bit less intimidating, like helping normalize it, because that's the first step, right? Is being aware of where we stand and how we want to, if we want to reframe it, how do we do that?
Definitely. Have you
Mm-hmm.
found that, like, usually in a couple, one couple like feels this way, and then the other part of the couple feels a little
Yeah.
bit of a different way? Have
Yeah.
you found that if there are things that you don't quite agree on or haven't seen things in the same way so far, have you found that it's a little bit maybe tricky to navigate those conversations, or
Yeah.
do you feel
I
like you guys
mean,
have a handle?
yeah, I think we're still in the beginning stages of discussing, but I would say like we do have shared goals, which is good. We've talked about that. But I think our comfort level for like talking about these things, just because of how we were raised and how it was discussed in our own households, is like very different. Like I'm trying to be a little bit more comfortable, but like, and so I'm having to push a little bit, like, we need to talk about this. Let's sit down. Like, this is important. And so he's like slowly opening up too. But I could tell like we're on different levels of like how normal this is for having these conversations.
That's so normal,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
usually, I mean, for anything, but even for something as sensitive as like money, you just think differently about how
Mm-hmm.
you approach it. It's
Mm-hmm.
like a quiet thing that just kind of happens, or
Yeah,
it's a conversation, but it's interesting. It's really
it
fascinating. I
is.
will say though, money is actually one of the, was it top 3 or 5 um, reasons that couples get into arguments.
Yeah, I did read that because I remember when there was like so many different aspects of money. So there was like all these articles about how money can, cause divorce or like is related to high rates of divorce.
Yeah,
So that's why I think like me and my husband, like we're really prioritizing having these conversations and making sure like we're both on the same page, or if we're not, like how do we get on the same page for communicating. Um, but it's so interesting how some of the behaviors that we like observe that our parents have like can really show up in how we act, even with money, right? Like feeling like I remember shopping with my mom and only going to the clearance section. So what do I do now? I only go to the clearance section. And if I get something from non-clearance, not on sale, like I'm second guessing myself like 10 times before I make the decision to buy it or not to buy it. And it's so interesting, right? Like how much this plays a role in our like decision making when it comes to finances and even hoarding. My parents are also stuck in that scarcity mindset with that. Like like our garage is kind of full of all these like things from 20 years ago that could be, that we could get rid of. But again, it's they're like they don't want to get let go of it. And I think it has to do with that scarcity mindset, or having nothing to start with in the beginning, like, oh, like we might need this later, so we should save it.
I'm sure. I mean, that must have been traumatic.
Mm-hmm.
And feeling that
Mm-hmm.
confidence from that is, it's hard to shake off.
It is. It is. So yeah, that's my story. Reflection.
I'm sure this is going to come as no surprise, but my reflection is going to be very similar.
I would. I feel like we've also talked about it a little bit in a way. I feel like in the past you've shared like where your parents' mindset is about school, right? Like studying and all of that.
You see,
Yeah.
you already get the gist of it. Yeah, exactly. Growing up, I was definitely treated like the kid. She is
Mm.
a kid. She's
Mm-hmm.
not a part of these very adult
Yeah.
conversations. The focus was exactly like you said: study, eat, sleep, study. study, eat, sleep, study. I wasn't even allowed to do chores, right? I know I'm pretty sure I've said that too in the past. So if I'm not even allowed to do chores, you can imagine being a part of conversations around money.
Yeah.
Definitely not part of that.
Mm-hmm.
But now, because of that, I won't exactly know what was going on maybe behind closed doors as far as like the finances go and the like money talks go.
Mm-hmm.
But from my perspective, again, a very limited, tiny window into this,
Yeah.
it didn't seem like my mom really was involved in fully knowing the state of finances. You know, my mom has always worked, as has dad, but it seemed to me that while they like made purchases together and they consulted one another, dad usually had more of the know-how of where all the money was and where it was going, and mom like knew on the high level. That's how it always seemed to me. Now again, I don't know if that's true.
Yeah.
But that was my perception growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And growing up, you know, like you, I fully can recognize and acknowledge that I had a lot of privilege in that sense of I never felt like a want necessarily. I mean, of course, I was a kid. I wanted lots of things. And you weren't going to say yes to everything.
Yeah.
But in the same line of thought, like the things that I needed or truly, truly deeply wanted, I might have had it. Right. So I never really was too concerned growing up when I was much, much younger about like money and finances. And I know we had some years, especially in the beginning, where things were hard. Because like I said, much like yourself and much like any immigrant story, my parents came here with literally like $7 in their pocket. And like they really had to grow from there. But I never knew how it impacted them or me, truly, until I was an adult.
Yeah.
And when I was in high school, I think, my dad took me to the bank and we opened up a credit card. And he had put like I think there was like a limited amount of money. I didn't have a job, of course, because my job was to study.
Yeah.
So he had put like the limited amount of money that needs to go in the checking and the saving. And the idea was that I would start building credit, essentially. So they would sometimes be like, okay, you buy your things on your credit card and then we'll put the money in so that it can get taken off.
Yeah.
So I had a little bit of an inkling, a little bit of an idea, like, oh, okay, there's something like credit. You have to build credit history. You have to like, it's good for you. It'll help you with loans in the future, you know, things like that. I had a little bit of an inkling into that, but I wasn't allowed to have a job. So I didn't really get to truly experience what that means and how to do anything with it. It was more like they were looking out for me and just kind of setting it up for me. And in college, you know, much like what you talked about, I wasn't encouraged to take a job. And also I was a little bit of a crazy person and I decided I needed to do 18 hours. Never do 18 hours.
Oh my gosh. That sounds stressful.
And honors and be a choreographer for a dance team. Yeah, none of that was a good idea. So even if I wanted to, I didn't have enough responsibility or awareness to manage my time. But that aside, I did use my parents' like my dad's credit card. He did pay for things while I was still an undergrad, like yourself. And that was always, I was always a little bit weird about it because I felt the privilege of it. I would very much acknowledge that, but it also kind of felt almost like shameful about it because I was like, oh, other people are working, they're earning, they're not relying on anybody. And I was like, I can't believe I have to rely on like daddy's money.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of like shame in that too. But I'm also, of course, on the other side of that, I'm very grateful that my parents were able to help me in that way.
Yeah.
I did work later in college, but part-time jobs. And of course, I wasn't allowed to actually spend it. And what I mean by that is my dad had convinced me, he was like, you need to be able to save. And like, what are you going to do after you graduate? And like, are you going to immediately get a job? You don't know. He kind of put a little bit of a fear in me. So the money I earned, I used to like buy gifts for my parents for my first paycheck, or I would save in the bank, or he would teach me how to, actually his brother taught me how to do stocks a little bit. All I really knew was this is a cool company. I know what this company is. I'm just going to put a little bit of money in that. Not really very educated investing, but
something.
A start. We'll just say a
Yeah.
start. But after I graduated and then like as a full adult, now cut off obviously from my parents' uh, credit cards, right? I was on my own. I was relying on that savings that I thankfully had
Yeah.
and looking for work and learning how to manage being an adult now. And that was so confusing. I was like, what the heck is a Roth IRA?
Yeah.
What do I really do with stocks though? Like I can just
Exactly.
leave it there, right? No, you're not supposed to leave it there. Why not?
Yeah.
It's so confusing. I did not know what it means to balance a check. I still don't know, by the way, but that's okay because I don't have a check. It's fine. Whatever. I'll Google it if I need to.
Yeah.
And really, like you, I just learned how to do the bare minimum to get by. I just knew that what was coming in, I needed to make sure I spent less. That's all I knew.
Yeah.
That's all I did.
Yeah.
And I followed like, I don't remember now, but it's like what no, I'm going to totally butcher it. It's like the 80-20 rule or something like that.
I've
of
heard
like
about that.
spend versus save, something like that.
Yeah.
So I would try to like Google things and like, how do you really budget? And like, how do you manage finances? A lot of that try to come from Googling things. So I was trying all of these things but primarily though, I was just like, okay, bare minimum. Anytime I have conversations about money and like how to properly manage and how to track it, it just like goes over my head. My brain just shuts off. It's like, no, I don't know. Don't talk to me. I don't want to listen. My brain's just not really comprehending it. But like you've been doing, you know, I've been trying to have more of those conversations, particularly like, you know, with my husband and trying to be okay leaning on him to take the lead on the things that I truly just, I'm like, I don't know, absolutely confused on.
Yeah.
For example, stocks. If it was up to me, I would buy like steady stocks and just leave it. Don't touch it. But that is not his approach. He's like, okay, we can do that for some stocks, but we need to like be more active. I was like, no, thank you.
I don't
Not
know
for
about
me.
that either.
No. So he takes the lead on that. And when it comes to like tracking our finances, that's something that we've really made it a point, especially in the past like 2 years, to really like be more intentional with it. So we track like what's coming in, we track what's going out. We have like a whole category system. We have like
That's
another
good.
mid category of the categories.
That's really
It's a whole
good.
system. Yeah, but it's really helpful to think of it that way because then it feels like it gives you more security. It gives you more comfort rather than the unknown. And then you're just constantly feeling, especially me, like I did feel a lot of guilt spending on anything, even if it was like a $10 new phone case, because mine had a broken button. I would be like, yeah, but do I really need it? Like, what? Yeah, you kind of do. It's okay.
Yeah.
But it helped me feel more safe and secure in being able to spend and take away some of that guilt when I could fully understand the finances and fully understand, okay, here's how much we have to spend this month. And like, we have this to spend. This is okay to spend because we've already saved this amount. So being able to understand all of that for me was, I think, pretty instrumental in trying to lessen my guilt.
Yeah, that's good.
But it still kind of shows up in some ways. You know, the current fight that me and my husband have consistently now is like clothes. I like to go to like Ross and like Marshalls. They have cute clothes for like cheap. And I'm like, I'm the kind of person who's like, I'm not going to spend more than $20 on a dress or a shirt or a pant or anything.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's not quality. You need to spend a little so that it's quality things that'll last you. I'm just like, no, thank you. But he made this point the other day. He said, and I think he heard it from TikTok or something, some video, and it said, you're too poor to buy cheap things. As in, if you keep buying cheap things, you're going to keep buying them.
Right.
Because they're going to break, they're going to tear, they're going to rip, something's going to go wrong.
Right.
So buy quality things because it's an investment. And I was like, okay, that's like really smart.
It is
I
smart.
like that.
I would agree with that.
Guilt is saying no.
For sure. So even like when I would buy like quality things, like I would try to get them on sale. So like it's like $5 cheaper than the original price, but it's still like a lot, and I still feel guilt. But it's so interesting. That's so true.
I hear that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's learning like with anything that we talk about, that sometimes discomfort doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It just means it's change.
It's different. Mm-hmm.
Different.
Different what
Exactly.
you're used to.
Exactly. So honestly, like reflecting all this and like even the past 2 years as I've been trying to be more comfortable with finances and allow the things that go over my head to like, okay, I need to zero in a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
We've been really trying to make these conversations about patience because both of our like money beliefs or money scripts, as you put it,
Yeah.
they're a little bit different. So what happens is we tend to clash when we talk about it. And when we clash, I have, because I don't just know a lot of this and a lot of this goes in my head.
Yeah.
I ask the same question again and again, nearly every time. And it drives him crazy. He's like, oh my God, we just talked about it. And I'm like, did you just yell at me? So we've been really practicing the patience the past 2 years. And,
That's good.
you know, it's a good reminder always that yes, things can be confusing. Yes, things can be triggering, but you can just keep, you know, keeping at it.
Yes,
Keeping on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Keep on.
Yeah. And one thing that I definitely want to do differently, whether it's with my possible kid in the future or like all the other young cousins that I have, is really just talking about money, not like
normalizing
saying,
it.
okay, this is an adult topic. No, they need to know from early on, at least, you know, developmentally appropriate things.
Yes, exactly.
Some exposure.
Yes. I like that term. I use that a lot at work. Developmentally appropriate.
I bet you do. Yeah. I can see that.
But you're right. I think that's the root of it, right? Normalizing it, talking about it.
Yeah.
The more it's out there, the more curiosity it can induce and more discussions can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that we have often taken kids for an incorrect belief of like they're too young to understand.
No, they're
And
very
it's like,
capable.
well, they can't understand like big concepts, but you can explain it in a way that they can understand at their age. And that's good practice for them.
Yes, and children are observers, and if you don't model like the behavior that you want them to have when they're older, they won't learn.
They're going to learn whatever. Yeah, they're learning constantly anyway. So you can actively teach them, or you can sit back and then see what they learn, whether it's what you want or not.
Yeah, for sure.
This was a good topic. I like it.
Yeah, learning a little bit more about your story or hearing your story and my story, like I think it's just so interesting how even though we come from different cultural backgrounds and our parents come from different countries, I think it's just so interesting how there's such shared similarities between that and how these money scripts and ideologies and these gender norms are so prevalent in the South Asian culture in general. And like you said, the undoing and the kind of healing kind of starts from observing and reflecting on your own pre-developed money scripts and how we can reframe those.
It's a fascinating topic.
It is.
I think we all can take a moment and reflect and keep growing in this way.
Yeah, exactly. Another thing that's linked to people pleasing, but definitely there's so much more than that. It's intergenerational as well, which is something also to remember that it is not an easy task to undo these money scripts or these preconceived notions that are instilled in you at an early age, right? So wanted to kind of validate that it does require work, and baby steps like you and your husband are making go a long way.
Yeah, and there's a lot of trial and error in that. Like we used to do it like when we remembered, and then it became once a month, and then I was like, that's still not enough. So now it's like every week or every other week we update it.
That's good. You're gonna have to send me this because me and Aliman are trying to figure out how we're gonna do this. So
I have a whole thing. It'll be very confusing, but I'll walk you through it. Because it's like chicken scratch on Excel. We have like all of these columns that we don't often still use, but we want to see it.
Okay.
It's good.
Okay. I need the template. I would love the template.
We'll talk.
Okay. All right. You want to wrap us up?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's do it. So, as always, a reminder, if our podcast resonated with you and our topic resonated with you today, and you'd like to share your money stories with us or ask us any questions, feel free to reach us at talksupasiantome@gmail.com or find us on any of the socials at the handle at Talk Stuff Asian to Me.
Mhm.
Until next time.
Bye.